All right, so here's how to get more clients with less leads, less traffic, less volume, less work, and more reward. Okay, so here's the thing. Most people, probably you included, are convinced that if you could get more leads, you'd be able to close enough of them and generate enough cash flow to grow your business and then maybe delegate and grow even more, right? Well, I can prove to you that it's not true, and here's why. Now, don't get me wrong, for 1 to 5% of people, it's actually true. And that's why pretty much every course and program out there has that success rate. Throw leads at 100 coaches and consultants, and 1 or 2 of them will be successful and leave a great review and a testimonial. But what about the rest of them? That 98% holding the empty bags. Now, did that happen to you? Did you feel not good enough when others were able to see success with that specific strategy or program? Now, if that's the case, be aware that there are a lot of people out there who need 200 calls to close 1 client. I'm not making this up. I actually heard a guy saying that his business coach told him that he should have 200 calls. And this is not the only horror story related to high volumes, because I talked to a prospect one day that told me that they had to interview 400 people because they were instructed so by their coach. That resulted in 0 clients. Can you imagine having 400 calls and 0 clients? I mean, so many people rely on sheer volume to get this solved, but 98% of people still can't make it work that way. So here's a point where I prove you that this approach won't solve your problem. If you happen to be one of those people who need 200 calls to close a single client, you're going to have to tell me, where will you find the time to have 200 calls per week when a week is only 168 hours and 1/3 of that time is spent sleeping or moving from place to place? This means that you'd have to spend pretty much every waking minute on sales calls just to close 1 client per week. By the way, that's a 0.5% conversion rate. The industry average is around 20% and I'm at 80%. If your conversion rate is so low, I'm pretty sure that you're not charging more than $2,000, right? So even assuming that for the next month, you spend every waking minute on a sales call and your calls are half an hour in length, and you still find time to get 200 people to get on a call with you every week, which I find very unlikely. But even if you could do all of this, you'd be making less than 10K per month. And good luck not burning out before the end of that month, maybe that week. So now can you see how increasing the number of leads is only going to increase your problems? Because if you were able to get to 20% close rate, so the industry standards, now you'd only need 5 calls to close the same amount of clients. That's just 5 hours per week, and that's actually easy. And this is why more leads don't solve and won't solve your problem, but increasing your conversions will. Okay, so you gotta focus on that. So here's another problem though. How do you do that? How do you increase your conversions? Like, should get better sales, right? Well, yes, but sales is a complex skill, actually a complex set of skills. And I can guarantee you that you won't go from 0.5% close rate to 20% in 1 month by just changing a sales script, okay? I'm not saying you should not learn sales, quite the opposite, but there's no magic in there. It's a lot of practice and a lot of time learning those skills little by little. But you need cash coming in probably next 3 weeks or months, ideally this very month, right? So how do you do that? By the way, remember how I said the my close rate is 80%? I was actually one of those who needed 200 calls to close a client, and I went from 0.5 to 90% in 1 single month, right? So I didn't improve my sales skills overnight, of course. That would be impossible, not that much at least. So what I did was asking a simple question. I asked myself, what would people buy from me rather than how to sell my stuff, right? So I changed the focus on what was important for them. But that led me to another problem. How do I find out? Because all of the programs I had done before made me ask the same question, but the solution was to create an offer by thinking very hard about it, and usually it doesn't work. Because even if you are very experienced in a specific field, it's usually very hard to see things from the perspective of our clients rather than our own perspective. So here's a crazy, unique, and brand new idea. Yes, I'm making fun of myself here. So the idea is to ask people within a group or a category, ask them a set of specific questions, the same questions over and over, so that I can create a beautiful graph on Canva like this one. Okay, enough jokes, but yeah, it's important. You don't need the graph, don't worry. It's important that the questions are consistent, but I explain the whole process in my free ebook that you can download at the link below, and it solves all of the problems in this process, because there are a couple more actually, And once you ask people info, it's not always easy to understand how to do it and how to collect all the data. It's really important to have a systematic process to do this. Otherwise, you'll end up like the person who did 400 interviews basically for nothing. And by the way, don't worry, you don't want to have to do more than a couple of days for a couple of weeks, let's say, if you follow this process. Now, this creates another problem because you want to imagine, you talk to 15 to 20 people in your target market, and imagine one or two of them could actually become clients, but now you've asked them for info and you feel bad to ask again to become your client, right? There could be this problem if you're struggling to close clients, right? So how do we overcome this? Well, what if they ask you? That's why you want to give them way more than what you asked. And that has a lot of benefits, from the natural reciprocation instinct most of us have, to the fact that you've already proven them that you can help them, which increases the likelihood of them thinking about working with you, right? So that's exactly what you want to do. And this way you can get all of these things at the same time while focusing on just one thing, so you're not spreading yourself thin. And when I say all these things, basically what I mean is, one, you get fundamental information on what your market is looking for, so you can sell them exactly what they want. And what I always say is, it's a bit like going to the restaurant, you pick your food and pay for it because that's what you wanted. Nobody forced you. I've never heard a waiter or waitress complain about all the rejections they get when they bring people what they ask for. That thing doesn't exist, right? So that's exactly the position you want to be in. And two, you get the chance to pitch your repackaged offer, or new one if you're starting from scratch, to a few people who are now warm because you interviewed them and give more in return. It's not unlikely to get the first one or even two high-ticket clients in this phase, right? Which is usually a couple of weeks or a little more. And three, you get enough information to create content for months from those interactions, which means you'll get even more clients, even more opportunities to get clients, because you get in touch with people you haven't talked to directly, not yet at least, right? So if you want to download a practical ebook with the exact process and a bunch of tips and tricks to make this even more effective, together with a practical workbook, just head over to the link in the description and you'll be able to download everything right now. To your big dream.